Joining us in the Informer studio is the CEO of SecondBite. His name is Jim Mullan. Jim, welcome to Australia.
Thank you, George.
About, 4 or 5 years?
Just over 5 years now.
Now, what would bring a man like you, with your colourful background, a Scot no less, to this land down under? You weren't, as they say, sent down under, were you?
No, I wasn't. And well, that depends who you ask. So the reason that my wife and I are here is that 14 years ago, my stepdaughter completed a PhD in applied chemistry, and she wanted to see the world. And she skidded through Southeast Asia and she landed in Melbourne and went round the country. Landed back in Melbourne after about 8 months, decided she wanted to see out her year. She took a casual role with a pharmaceutical company. And within 6 weeks of taking that role, they offered to sponsor her to stay. And she did. And 2 years later, her brother came out for a visit, and he didn't come home either. And so for a long period of time,
it's a great story.
Australia was just a holiday destination for us. But then they met and married significant others, and children began to arrive.
That's
and with
dastardly stuff.
So with each child, the pressure at home ratcheted up until we got to number 4, and Helena said, "I'm going," or "We're going."
That's fantastic.
And here we are.
Well, bless your wife, and bless you for deciding that family comes first, and deciding that, you know, with this tribe just continuing to blossom down under, there must be reasons that we should go too. But you've taken on a fantastic responsibility as the CEO of one of those organisations that does a tremendous amount of work that we don't know too much about, but is doing more and more work each and every year. Can you please explain the work of SecondBite and how it came to be?
Okay, so I will do this in 2 parts.
Yeah.
Part number 1, the Australian government let me into this country at a point when people my age, as a rule, don't get in.
So you're giving back.
So I was granted what's described as a distinguished talent visa into the country, and with that comes the responsibility that I'm indebted to Australia, and it's my duty to pay that debt. So I had been here and I'd been working privately for some smaller not-for-profit organisations, kind of figuring out what the role would be, and the SecondBite role came up. SecondBite's in its 15th year, and it was established by Ian and Simone Carson, who, leaving an event in Melbourne and watching food coming out the side of a building, asked themselves the question, what happens to food that people aren't going to use? And so they and their family and a group of friends and a Volvo station wagon started by going to the Melbourne markets at the weekend, gathering up what was left at close of play, taking it to Pran Mission or Sacred Heart Mission.
Fantastic.
Having it converted into food that fed people that night.
So that was the original concept of trying to end the waste.
Absolutely.
And end the
This was very much a personal mission for Ian and Simone, and it kind of grew out of there. My recollection is that the first major sponsor of the organisation was ANZ. So as it was beginning to look at, well, we need some premises and we're beginning to need some resources round about this, ANZ came to the party.
Was it a case of the bank seeing it also has a responsibility to its community and to its constituents?
I think they just loved the idea.
Yeah, we loved the idea when we first heard about it.
Yeah.
You know, I was on television at the time. I remember seeing the story and thinking, great, isn't that fantastic? What you can do where there's a will to do something.
Well, I think that, so there's 2 elements to this. There's one where you recognise that that what you see is wrong and you want to try and do something about it, and you're motivated around about that. But then there's the ability of, and Ian and Simone are continuing, to do this. The energy they bring and their persuasive talents, bringing other people to engage with the process, has been significant and has, I think, been the bedrock piece with respect to the success the organisation's had. So it got to its feet, appointed its first CEO, Katie Barfield, who Katie's now at UME and she's a complete star. Full of energy, full of enthusiasm, the right person at the right time for the organisation, helping to move things along. But I suppose the real step change for SecondBite came, it's about 11 years ago now. Coles, driven by a response from their workforce, saying to management, on a daily basis,
we
throw this food out that must be able to be put to a better purpose.
Yep.
And so Coles made a decision at that time that they wanted to try and find a national partner.
An outlet.
To become their food rescue partner.
Wow.
So I think they asked everyone. I mean, I think they went across big NGOs and all of the organisations that you thought might have an interest in this, and most of them said no. And in a moment of complete insanity, this small, very Melbourne, Victoria-centric organisation put its hand up and said, we'll do it.
Great. And it's courage?
Conviction, courage,
agility.
Being
small, you're not weighed down by other things, but you have other responsibilities.
You have other responsibilities, but you're about to gain a 30 billion a year turnover partner with, at that time, probably 700 outlets around the country, plus distribution centres, and you're working out of these small markets.
Great.
So both the learning curve and the acceleration of the organisation just went skywards. Quick decisions about how to engage with an organisation like this, and remarkable patience shown by Coles around helping the organisation to find its feet around about this. Expansion of activities into the capital cities in the States, beginning to build a transport fleet that was able to service.
Yeah, the logistics are really key, aren't they?
Absolutely. Yeah. All of the stores in metro areas. A complete genius moment when the organisation landed on the concept of what we call Community Connect. Now, Community Connect is effectively, SecondBite is a broker for all of the small relief agencies, mom and pop, church door organisations across the regions and rural areas, where we act as the broker between that agency and its local Coles store.
And make it happen.
Yeah. So that's now in the order of 1,300 organisations right around the country, between the ones that we work with in metro areas and the ones that do outreach. So from the back of a Volvo, and I've just seen these numbers, last year, SecondBite, out of the Coles network and the broader network, lots of primary producers involved now, 27,000 tonnes of food that was heading into a hole in the ground was diverted.
Jim Mullan, what's your next key driver? What is the next most important thing that you need to do, other than now that you've pressed the button to this new campaign? And we're going to play it, by the way, let you have a look at it, and apologies to all those that don't recognise the second kicker of the football. Go on.
Oh, listen, we find ourselves in the same space that the entire charitable sector finds itself in right now. The unknowns, the remaining unknowns around the longer term impact of COVID. I mean, Victoria is bearing the brunt of that right now. But I don't think this is finished with us, and I think the other states have similar levels of risk that they need to manage.
I agree.
The accompanying recession it is going to be devastating. The challenge for us is, how do we continue to scale what we're doing? Because the reality is that ourselves and the other food relief agencies are going to have a more significant demand for our services over the coming years than anything I think we've seen previously. We're very fortunate, great partners. So Coles, absolute standout. But organisations like PFD Foods and 7-Eleven and a whole range of primary producers who are now in this space,
they all play their part.
All playing their part. We get extraordinary amounts of food now straight from farm gate, because first class goes to supermarkets. But the question is, what happens to second and third?
Yeah.
It's perfectly edible, it's beautiful.
Not only that, those restaurants aren't open.
Well,
so you're getting a better second bite, aren't you?
We are getting a better second bite. I think there are challenges in that space as well. I think that for lots of primary producers, labour force for the purposes of harvest is going to be a significant challenge.
Yep.
So we find ourselves with all of these moving parts, and our challenge is going to be having early sight on the implications of each of the moving parts, and then continuing to make a plan to grow our activity. However, I travel in hope more than expectation, but that's proven to be quite a successful path for me through most of my working life, so I continue to do it, George.
Welcome to Australia. Welcome to Melbourne.
Very much.
Thank God you followed the family. Bless you with the work that you and the team are doing at SecondBite. I trust this campaign, this one that you've just launched, goes as well as we possibly can, because Lord knows we have great many people, disadvantaged families that are struggling to make ends meet, and where we can play a part, it's absolutely imperative.
Oh, I think, George, listen, just today, potential that there's another 250,000 individuals are losing their jobs.
Yeah.
We all feel the pressure,
Correct.
But it's the right pressure to have. It's about doing the right thing and trying to serve as many people as we possibly can.
Jim Mullan, well said. Thank you so very much. Come again and we'll tell more of the story of SecondBite whenever we need it. All right?
I'm delighted to do it.
Pleasure.
George.